Back to Miller. Oh my goodness.
Herbert.
Sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move by Filipowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Beef Upfront podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, joined by Joe Kmetz for our weekly show, the College Football Big Five Games of the Week, as well as our Group of Five Game of the Week. So we bring 6 of the top games on the college football slate. We give you a full breakdown of X's and O's, spread, over, under. We hit on all of it here. And we're already in October now, which is wild. Red October here in Philadelphia, but we're about to be halfway through our college football season. Don't really like that, but now we're really just starting to get into the juice of it. The real good games are starting to come up, and it should just be a lot more fun from here on out each and every week. Welcome back to the show, Joseph, and how are we?
Fantastic, Coyle. I mean, like you said, it's already crazy. We're in week 6. Notre Dame, my team already has played 6 games because they played in week 0. This is their 7th game already. They're only going to have 5 games left after this week, which is, it's kind of depressing when you go on ESPN and you click on the team schedule and you can see that last game now. It's not like where we were a couple weeks ago, but enough of the doom and gloom. It's college football. It's Red River rivalry weekend. The boys are going to be up at Misericordia for homecoming this weekend. Good weekend for the boys. Another great weekend of college football. Another very good slate. We've been spoiled these past couple of weeks. A lot of good, solid slates. Slate's so jam-packed, we're not even going to go in depth for a top 25 matchup. That's how many big games there are this week. But enough talking. Let's get right into it.
All right, before that, we'll just recap last week. Pretty strong week from the both of us. I went 12-6. I went 4-2 straight up, 3-3 against the spread. Did really well in the totals, 5-1. 0-1 on my dog of the day, and then 0-1 on my lock of the week. As I've said before, now just fade my lock of the week because I haven't hit one since week 0. Joe, you went 11-7, 5-1 straight up, 2-4 against the spread, 4-2 total, 0-1 on your dog of the day, and 0-1 on your lock of the week. Do you want to hit on your lock of the week real quick, ending your, 4-game winning streak?
The lock of the week was brutal. I almost refuse to acknowledge it and pull a Buckman act like Florida did with Georgia back in 1904 and just not acknowledge the loss. But, it was 35-7. I think when it was 28-7, you texted me something like, wow, UCF is, rolling. I was like, yeah, they're looking good, a lot of game left. Then they went up 35-7. I put my phone down to start getting ready to go out for the night. I feel like it wasn't even 5 minutes later. I open up my phone. I see it's 35-33. Baylor ended up winning outright. Crazy way to lose, my lock of the week. I was red hot, but we're looking to get back on track this week. Once we get to our locks, I found a lock. I was so confident. I bet it's Sunday evening for this weekend. I already have it in my phone locked in. I'm very confident about my lock this week. We're going to get right back on track.
All right. Well, that'll be at the end of the show, so make sure to stay tuned for the entire episode to get that. We start on Saturday. Well, we're recording this on Tuesday. We actually have Wednesday night games going forward now, so that's pretty cool. I think the rest of the season, right?
I think starting Wednesday, there is college football or the NFL every single day until I think the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's either it's the next 50 days or next 55 days, one of those two. So we got a lot of football coming up, but we won't have any of the Wednesday weeknight games on because we have a loaded slate on Saturday, and that starts with number 12, Oklahoma versus number 3, Texas. Texas is a 5-point favorite in this one, over under 59.5, 12 o'clock kick on ABC. Last matchup between these two teams in the Big 12 before they transition to the SEC next year. And I think this is the best matchup in this rivalry since 2019 when we were only sophomores in college. Now we're both, or I'm 2 years removed, you're a year removed from grad school. So it's been a little bit of time coming for this rivalry to get back on track, I think. But I think we have a really good matchup here. What are your thoughts on this game, Joe?
Yeah, Coyle, I agree with you. I just hope we get a similar game to, I believe it was 2021, our senior year, when it was Texas kind of went up big, Oklahoma came back. But I just kind of hope we get a back and forth game. As always, this game, I just kind of root for chaos. I root for the over, even though this year I kind of hate it. I'm still picking it anyways, just because it's a principle for me. So I'm going to take Texas 31, Oklahoma 30. I'll take Oklahoma plus the 5. I will take the over of 59.5. Honestly, I just think Oklahoma is taking that, a really big step up in weight class. Texas has already gotten to play at Alabama. I know this game is a neutral site every year. It's one of the few neutral site games that I actually like, and I'm glad that they play at a neutral site. But I'm looking right now at the schedule. Oklahoma, their best win, you can say, is at Cincinnati. Big 12 victory now, which is weird to say. Dylan Gabriel's been having a really good year, don't get me wrong, and Oklahoma is a very good team. Not trying to take anything away from them. I just think Ewers and Texas have already kind of gotten to experience top tier competition. I think that's going to kind of be the difference maker. I could see Oklahoma being up late, Ewers leading a game-winning drive, Texas kicking a field goal with less than 2 minutes left to win it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good one too, Joe. Interested, like you were saying, to see how Oklahoma kind of measures up against Texas, who a lot of people think are the best team in the country. But like I was saying, best game in this rivalry since 2019, I think. That was number 6, Oklahoma beat number 11, Texas. But coming off last year's 49-0 blowout win from Texas, coming out on top over Oklahoma, Oklahoma's coming into this game with a little extra motivation, I think. Texas has been getting all the hype and all the talk in the Big 12 this year. Everyone's saying that they're going to run the table. But Oklahoma has been very impressive in their own right. They're one of the few teams in the country that's a perfect 5-0 against the spread this year. And they've won every game they played by 14 points. Like you were touching on, they haven't played exactly the best competition yet. But still, this is a team that's gone out and really improved since last year's poor season and has just gone out there and dominated this year. When you think of this matchup, as you were touching on, you usually lean towards the offense and the up and down kind of high-scoring nature between these two schools. But Oklahoma, the most points that they've let up this season is 20, and the most Texas has let up this year is 24 in that Alabama game. So for that reason, I'm actually going to take the under in this one. I also said I think Texas is due to have a slip-up at some point, and I think there's no better way to do that than against a rival at a neutral site. I think Oklahoma is going to win this game outright. I think that they're going to have a masterclass defensive performance. Quinn Ewers turns it over 2 or 3 times in this one, and Oklahoma claws out a victory. So I'm going to go with the neutral site, Oklahoma outright win, 24-20, Oklahoma plus 5, under 59.5. I think with a win in this situation, we might see Oklahoma up in the top 5, if not top 6 next week. All right, second game of the week. It was between this one or the LSU-Missouri game, and I left out the LSU-Missouri game just because LSU already has 2 losses. I, quite frankly, don't even think that they should be ranked at number 23 right now. So we're going to go with this one with a 1-loss UCLA team and an undefeated Wazoo. You have number 13 Washington State at UCLA. UCLA still is coming into this one, despite not being ranked, as a 3-point home favorite here. Over-under is 59 and is a 3 o'clock kick on the Pac-12 network. So nobody in America is going to be able to watch this game. But if you want to stat track it on your phone and follow our pick, go right ahead.
Well, don't worry. I think Sicko's committee figured out that you can, if you have the new Samsung, like the smart fridges, they have a TV on them. And for some reason, the fridges get the Pac-12 network. So, I mean, for probably, if I had to pick the over-under of people that listen to this podcast and have a Samsung fridge, I'd probably take under a half. But still, who knows? Maybe if you have one, just prop a little chair up in front of the fridge. You can go
That's what
get
our guy Gary Parrish noticed last year for Pac-12 Network for basketball. So if you wanted to watch, Arizona play late night, all you had to do was sit in front of your fridge. That's
just all-time degenerate behavior. But if we had that back up at Lake, we would have been pulling up a couple of chairs in the kitchen. I'm going to take Wazoo here, 45-27. I think they're going to dominate UCLA. And once again, kind of like I was saying earlier about Oklahoma, not to take anything away from them, just I think they're kind of a year too early with Moore at QB. I think next year UCLA is going to be a very real threat, and now the Big Ten. But this year, I just think they're they're a little bit of an experience away. I think this is a very good Washington State team that has been playing with a chip on their shoulder all season, being left out of the conference realignment. Having Lee Corso make a joke about the Oregon State game being the no one watches bowl, and all the stuff being talked about Washington State. Washington State is the number 2 offense, not only in the country, but also in their state behind Washington. This is a very good team that the Cougars have. Also, I have ESPN pulled up for all the games, but I kind of laugh. I don't know if ESPN updates their FPI. I don't really think it means anything, but ESPN's claiming that Washington State only has a 33% chance to win this game is kind of crazy to me. The fact that they're underdogs, I guess they're technically the road team, but the Rose Bowl doesn't exactly scare me as a road environment. We've seen pictures for some of the UCLA games, when they've been at home, and it's been kind of pathetic at times. I love Cam Ward, though. Washington State, they're electric. I think they're going to go under the radar all season. And looking ahead at their schedule, like I said, they avoid USC, which is huge. They're really, if they can get through this game, I don't see why the Apple Cup, they can't either be undefeated or have one loss, because they do have to go to Oregon, who Oregon is looking like, if not the best, definitely the second best team in the Pac-12 at the moment. But I think avoiding USC is huge, and they get Colorado coming to them late in the year. But after this week, you have, besides Oregon, you have Arizona, Arizona State, Stanford, and Cal in between that Colorado game and now. So, you get a win here for Washington State. You start to set up, little whispers of maybe a miracle season happening on the Palouse.
The few teams though that you've said the miracle season about, you've given them the jinx. I think they've gone on to lose the next week.
The kiss of death. So I hope I didn't just do that to Washington State, because I really do like this team, and I really hope they can keep it going. But I think I don't want to jinx them anymore. I'm just not going to keep talking. I think they're more talented than the other teams I've said that about. But knock on wood.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, before that Oregon State game, I said throw a flyer on Cam Ward to win the Heisman. He was 100-1 then. He's down to 40-1 now. So I still getting a good price there. If you say they have a shot to potentially on the table with the second best offense right now statistically in the country, they're looking like a pretty solid wager, I think, if you want to throw a bit of a flyer long shot on someone. I'm taking Wazoo on the road here too. I think I'm going to kind of hitch my wagon to them. I think Florida State's been my East Coast squad. I think Wazoo is going to be my West Coast squad the rest of the year. Big believer in them. I'm going to have them winning this one in a high-scoring affair, 40-30. So Wazoo obviously plus the 3 in the over 59. Wazoo wins this one comfortably on the road. I think they're continuing to get disrespected, especially with what we've seen from them this season. And UCLA in their biggest test fell flat against Utah. Say what you want. Utah, a really good defense, but UCLA just did not come to play in that one. Dante Moore, I think, like you said, Joe, is going to be a really good quarterback in the long run. But this is a tough kind of season to come into the Pac-12 and be a starting quarterback as a freshman with all the challenges and all the good teams that are in the conferences here. Washington State, though, just more experience, have a better quarterback, and as you touched on too, Joe, just quite frankly, a bigger chip on their shoulder to go out there and prove a point to all these other conferences that you should want us in your conference going forward. I still think Cam Ward is the best quarterback in college football that doesn't really get talked about enough just because he plays at Washington State, quite frankly. And I just think they're a better team than UCLA, so I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm going to take Wazoo on the road outright. The spread scares me because I think Washington State should be the favorite in this one. And I think it might be one of those, we look back at this like Vegas knows, but I'm too big of a believer in this Washington State team, and I think they're a really good squad. So I'll take them on the road here with that experience, especially at the quarterback spot. All right, we go to the SEC now. Number 11, Alabama at Texas A&M, who's unranked. Back-to-back weeks where I expected the one team to have a number next to their name. It did not in the SEC with the Kentucky-Florida game last week, and we saw how that wound up. Bama is only a 2.5-point favorite here, though, on the road. Over-under is 50, a 3:30 kick on CBS. Joe, you texted me on Sunday about this game, so I know where you're going with it. But give me your reasoning for taking the Aggies in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to Texas A&M here, 24-20. So I'm going to take them plus the 2.5. I'm going to take the under of 50. I think regardless of the outcome, this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think the under is a very good play, even though I'm never confident in taking totals. But this is just a game the past 2 years, and even like kind of throughout their history, earlier with the Johnny Football when they first came into the conference, A&M kind of just always seems to find a way to make it weird with Alabama. 2 years ago, obviously, Bama was number 1 in the country and got upset. We were and shout out Nick Prochak. Didn't think he'd be getting a shout out on game today. We were in his basement watching the game, and that was a crazy ending. The kick looked like it was going to hook out, ended up coming back in. They stormed the field. Last year when A&M was terrible, I think they needed like a Bama needed a goal line stop to prevent A&M from winning that game. I just think A&M at home here, and A&M's a lot better than, the fact that they don't have a number is kind of misleading. Like, I think, Coyle, you were saying you don't think LSU deserves to be ranked. I agree with you. I think A&M is a better team than LSU right now, for sure. So I would definitely say A&M at least deserved the number 25 next to them. I just think I don't know what to think of Alabama. Like, we saw if Texas is capable of going into your house and beating you, I don't think there's any reason why A&M isn't. I know A&M, had that loss to Miami second week of the year, which looked, not great just because of how Miami ended up winning the game. But I think A&M, has slowly been righting the ship. I think Jimbo knows what he's doing. He's him and Kirby are the only Saban assistants to bless you, are the only Saban assistants that have beaten him before. This is more so just a gut feeling. I just don't trust Jalen Milroe. This isn't, going to Mississippi State, who I completely talk about a team I cursed, saying, oh, LSU, Bama, Ole Miss, all coming to them. I think they might go 0-3 in those games now. But I don't know. I just don't think Bama's going to be able to get it done. I don't think Bama is good enough to win the SEC West, let alone the SEC. I just think there's something missing. This is kind of like a Saban team from when he first started there that was on the come up, and I just don't think they're going to have the juice. They might get through this game and win. They might prove me wrong, but I do not think at the end of the season Bama's going to be sitting there in Atlanta for the SEC title game.
Yeah, when I went to our favorite site, probably Winsipedia, to look at the rival or the history between these two teams, I thought A&M had knocked them off a few more times than they actually have. Bama's actually owns this all-time series, 12 wins in favor of their 3 losses. So Alabama historically still has won or dominated this rivalry. But last year, Alabama only won by 4. And the year before, as you were touching on, is when A&M won with that last second kick. And we know the recruiting classes by these Aggies, they're neck and neck right there talent-wise with Alabama right now. But can they perform on the field? Can they live up to the pressure of playing against Alabama? And can Jimbo Fisher coach to the same level of Nick Saban? I just don't think so. I still don't see it being a likely thing that we're in the first weekend of October and this Alabama team has 2 losses under Nick Saban. I'll say this right now. This will probably be something I'll clip for social media later. But until Nick Saban is no longer at Alabama, you will lose money betting against Alabama. That is just a fact. I don't care what happens. I don't care if they're number 1, number 2 in the conference. If you're going to continually bet against Nick Saban, you are going to be down money. That is just a fact. If you look at his track record, I don't care what you say it might happen in the future. I will go to my grave saying that as long as Nick Saban's on the Alabama sideline, you're going to have a better chance to win than not. Give me the Tide on the road here. Cover that 2.5 as well. I think Bama has been kind of finding this identity, winning with defense, the running game. And then as I was really clamoring for this offseason, this isn't a team built to throw it around the yard with skill guys. This is a team that's meant to run the football. You have a quarterback that can do that in Jalen Milroe. And they've only allowed 27 total points in their last 2 games against SEC teams. Ran for 193 yards last week against Mississippi State. I think they're really starting to find their stride. And as they get going into the thick of the SEC schedule, I think this is a big game for them and would really, I'm not going to say reverse that Texas loss, but really kind of give them some momentum that, all right, we can compete with a team that'll probably be up there at the top of the SEC with us. We're still Alabama. We're still here to play. Give us a chance going forward. And I think that they get it done here. They cover on the road. I'm going to go 27-21. Alabama wins. So -2.5 and the under of 50 hitting there. 4th game of the week, we still say in the SEC, number 20 Kentucky coming off a very impressive victory over Florida. At number 1 Georgia. Georgia is a 15-point favorite. Over under is 48.5. 7:00 kick on ESPN.
I'm going to go Georgia here, 31-21. So I'm going to take Kentucky to cover the 15. I think that's a lot of points. And I'm going to take I hate taking the over here, but I'm taking the over for the sake of the picks. And I thought this on Saturday, and I wish I texted somebody and tweeted it. But then I saw Big Game Boomer on Twitter tweeted out as well that he was kind of thinking the same thing I was thinking, or at least I was thinking the same thing he was, that this Georgia team reminds me a lot of 2014 Florida State with Jameis. A good team, but really didn't have a lot of tests, kind of rolled and slept walk through their season, and then ended up losing in the playoff. I can see Georgia doing that right now because going forward, they somehow – Kentucky obviously this week is going to them. They get Ole Miss. They get Missouri going to them. Their really only road game against they go to Tennessee. Then they have Georgia Tech on the road, but what does that mean? And Vanderbilt on the road, but what does that mean? They get the majority of the good teams coming to them. And then meanwhile, Kentucky, on the other hand, their last 7 games, 5 of them are against top 25 teams at the moment. They still have to play Georgia this week, and then Missouri, Tennessee, Bama comes to them, and they have to go to Louisville at the end of the season. So all those teams in the top 25. I really liked Devin Leary when he was at NC State. I had NC State last year as a dark horse to potentially make the playoff. Obviously, they fell short. Devin Leary got hurt last year. Am I right, Coyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got hurt last year, so I think that really ended up derailing the Wolfpack. But I really like Devin Leary. I really like what he's doing at Kentucky. Stoops has been they've been so consistently good over the past couple of years, and they've never been talked about because it's Kentucky football, like for kind of for good reason. But
I like Duke, I think, right now a little bit.
No,
what Duke can potentially be. We'll see if Elko stays, but something similar there.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think Georgia is, they're still Georgia. They're getting to play this game at home, which is a little bit of a bailout. If this game was at Kentucky, I would say there's a real opportunity for an upset alert. But we even saw Spencer Rattler in South Carolina go into Georgia and, give him a scare. There's no reason why Kentucky can't do the same thing. That's why I'm going to definitely take them to cover. I don't feel confident in them winning whatsoever, but I do feel very confident in them covering that 15-point spread.
Yeah, Joe, I really like them to cover too. I think it's going to be a closer battle than you, though. I will take Georgia to win outright. I feel like it's a foolish move to take Georgia to lose a home game here, especially as a double-digit favorite. So I'm just going to go a lower scoring game, but Kentucky really keeps it close. Georgia 24, Kentucky 20. So Kentucky plus 15 and under 48.5. We were talking about this a little bit last week, but it just feels like Kentucky is getting disrespected still. And then they just went out there and absolutely embarrassed Florida, where I think Florida is going to be the most head-scratching team this year. Like, wouldn't be surprised if they go 8-4. Wouldn't be surprised if they go 5-7, 6-6. Like, they're going to be an up-and-down squad. But Kentucky really went out there and gave it to them. I think this is a good team. I don't know if they're good enough to win at Georgia. Probably not, but I will take them to cover that number. This Georgia team has started games slow, but I think they really have done a good job at adjusting at halftime and imposing their will kind of in the second half. Carson Beck is kind of playing like the Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord, in my opinion, where he hasn't really been special, but I think he's shown up down the stretch when it mattered. I mean, McCord made a bunch of plays late in that Notre Dame game. I think Carson Beck in the second half has helped engineer his teams to leads, and he's doing a pretty good job of taking care of the football, still leading his team to an undefeated record. This is Georgia's first game, though, this season against a ranked team, and they struggled, as you were touching on, against that South Carolina squad, and then last week against Auburn, both unranked teams. So curious to see how they fare in this one. I'm still not going to pick them to lose at home, but I will take Kentucky to cover the number. They really play the similar style that this Georgia team plays. They're going to want to play physical. They're going to want to have a strong running game, and they're coming off a performance where they ran for, as a team, 329 yards last week, 3 touchdowns, and 9.1 yards per carry. So if this Kentucky rushing attack can do that again, they're going to be able to stay in this game. The momentum's high for Kentucky. They're feeling good. I think they keep it close. They cover this number, but I think Georgia just is too good in the end, and they find a way to win it outright. So give me Kentucky plus 15 and under 48.5, but Georgia still gets the victory. Fifth game of the week, the last of our top 5 games that we have before we get into our group of 5 game. Number 10, Notre Dame at number 25, Louisville. Notre Dame, a 6.5-point favorite coming off that thrilling win last week over Duke. Over-under is 52.5, and we have a 7:30 kickoff on ABC. Joe, what are your thoughts on this game? Can the Irish find a way to get another win?
I believe so. This is their 3rd straight game against a ranked opponent, so, definitely no rest for the weary. But I'm going to go Notre Dame 35, Louisville 24. I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover the 6.5. I'm going to take the over 52.5. Personally, I think Louisville is good. There's a reason why they're number 25. But I think Duke is better than the fact that Notre Dame was 5.5-point favorites last week. The fact that they're only getting one more point here, does kind of make me scratch my head a little bit here. What Vegas is thinking. But I think Notre Dame needed a game like that against Duke where they pulled it out. We saw them blow a close game against Ohio State. Now they had a close game against a ranked team on the road, and they were able to pull it out. for a team that looked dead. I mean, Coyle, you were in the group chat. I was texting, and I was ready to fire Marcus Freeman. I was ready to, just get rid of Sam Hartman. I was disgusted. Notre Dame, that was the worst game of football they played this season, and they somehow managed to win the game. So I think that's something that you need, for your confidence as a team. And now they've kind of regrouped. They have to go on the road again to another. It's going to be a rocking crowd down in Louisville. But I just think they're Duke was a better team than Louisville. I think Notre Dame is better than Duke. Therefore, Notre Dame will beat Louisville and cover the spread. Louisville, at the end of the day, too, when you look at the games they played, they needed a weird late comeback to beat Georgia Tech in the first week of the season. And then you can argue that, and then at NC State by a field goal are their two best wins. They really, looking at their schedule, it's been Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana, Boston College, NC State. I think NC State's the only team with a winning record on there. So a big step up in competition, kind of like I was saying earlier with Oklahoma. And I just think that's going to be the difference here. I think Notre Dame's going to win the game pretty easily too. Like, I know I have it as an 11-point game, but it wouldn't shock me if, Louisville scores a touchdown or two late against like second stringers. I could see Notre Dame dominating this game pretty easily.
Yeah, I like Notre Dame to win this one too. Didn't really get to watch much of the game. Kind of caught some of the end, but that was still very impressive. I was kind of ruling them out last week against Duke just because I thought the loss was going to hurt too much from the week before against Ohio State. But I think last week, that's a testament of a true tough team. And I think that's really going to help them going forward, finding a way to overcome that Ohio State loss and go on the road to Duke in what was arguably the biggest Duke football game at home in the history of that program, and they were able to find a way to get the win. I think that says a lot about this Notre Dame team. So I feel confident taking them on the road here to win, and I will take them to cover too. I'm going to go 31-21 Notre Dame over Louisville, so Notre Dame minus 6.5, and I'll go the under of 52.5 just hitting there. As I was just saying, very impressed by that bounce back. Even with their backs against the wall late in the game, they found a way to have that game-winning drive. But this is another tough game. If Notre Dame finds a way to navigate the rest of the season with an 11-1 record, they should get in the playoff. They're going to have to knock off multiple ranked teams. I don't know if the Clemson game will be a ranked game, but that's still a notable win over Clemson. You'll have this win. If they get this done, they'll have the Duke win and like a 3-point loss. I think the final was to Ohio State. They'll have to beat USC. It'll be a very impressive 11-1, not a bunch of cupcakes. So I think the path to the playoff is still there for them, but they can't afford any more slip-ups. They're really like their ability to put up points if they need to. They've shown the ability to do that against some inferior teams. They also did it against NC State. But then they showed they can play in lower scoring games as well. I know they lost the Ohio State game, but they showed that if they want to, they can play that type of style and be there till the end. And then they did that last week too against Duke. And Louisville, the thing with them though, they can kind of play either way too. They scored 39 or more in 3 of their games, and then their 2 games against Indiana and NC State, they won by a combined score of 44-24. So they showed the ability to play some smash mouth ball as well. So I'm interested to see the kind of tempo and the tide of this game. Notre Dame's getting a lot of respect here as a 6.5-point road favorite. I think Vegas really likes them, so I'm going to ride with Vegas on this one. I'm going to take Sam Hartman to have his first big game since that Central Michigan one, and I think Notre Dame's going to win by 10 here on the road. So Notre Dame minus 6.5 and under 52.5 is my play for that game. All right, our 6th and final game of the week, our group of 5 game, a really good one. Like some of these ones that we've had so far have been kind of picking for stuff, but this is a good one. Conference game, Mountain West. We have number 24 Fresno State. We got a ranked team in here, 5-0. They're playing at Wyoming, who's 4-1. Fresno State is a 6.5-point favorite, and the over/under is 47. 8:00 kickoff on Fox, and for some reason, I have a feel like this would be the game that would be on Beer Boys on Saturday.
Coyle, this would be the most like you're gonna have the Notre Dame Louisville game, the potential. I'm gonna knock. I don't want to jinx anything. If the Phillies were to make it to the next round, you might have a potential playoff baseball game Saturday night. I could see you and I walking upstairs and seeing Fresno State, Wyoming, and just laughing at the fact that that's the game on. But I'm gonna go Fresno here, 31-28. So I'm gonna take Wyoming to cover. I'm gonna take the over 47. Shout out to the Cowboys. I think this is the most people are going to ever watch Wyoming football. They were on CBS Labor Day weekend at night when they beat Texas Tech. You know, they had the ranked game against Texas. Now they're on Fox in a primetime slot. I think the Cowboys, it's going to be another crazy game. I believe they play in Laramie. I believe Laramie is where University of Wyoming is, not Cheyenne. I believe that's the capital. I don't really know a lot about these two teams, though. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. But I do think there's a reason why Fresno State is number 24 in the country. But Wyoming wins this game all of a sudden now in the Mountain West. I had their schedule a second ago. Wyoming has every right to be ranked if they win this game. Having a win against a Power 5 team in Texas Tech. People forget Wyoming was tied with Texas going into the fourth quarter. I know Texas ended up pulling away and all that, but Wyoming isn't just a random G5 team that got off to a hot start. And Fresno State, has that big win at Purdue. I believe that was the opener as well for them. So, the Bulldogs are a really good team. I would love to see a Mountain West representative for the G5 this year. We've been getting a lot of teams from the American Athletic of late. So it would be cool to kind of, spread out a little bit, like seeing Fresno play like a Penn State or a Notre Dame type team in the New Year's Six if they were to not make the playoff. I think that'd be really cool. So, give me the Bulldogs. Like I said, don't really know a lot about these two teams. Haven't got a chance to watch. So I think Fresno State pulls away a little late. Don't really know.
Yeah, I think this is as I was saying, a nice G5 game. Like if this is like the game that some people are going to get the chance to watch at night, I think it should be a pretty good battle. But the biggest discrepancy in this one, I was looking at the odds on DraftKings for the future to win the Mountain West. Fresno's sitting with the second best odds at plus 220, and Wyoming has the fourth best odds, but they're all the way back at plus 1,000. So I think that's a pretty big gap between these two teams. But I also think it's going to be a pretty good measuring stick where if Wyoming does find a way to win this game, we could potentially see them really bolt up and be like maybe the second favorite team behind a Boise State squad who's still in first, who is struggling to start the year. So I think this is going to be a good measuring stick game for both of these squads. Fresno State's defense, though, has been really strong over the past 3 weeks. They've only allowed 19 total points, and their offense in their own right is pretty dangerous as well. They're averaging 425 yards per game this season, and they've scored 27 or more in all 5 of their games. So it's a team that can play some really good defense they've shown over the past few weeks and light up the scoreboard as well. I think just top to bottom, they're a better overall team than Wyoming. I was able to watch some of that game against Texas Tech where they did look pretty impressive, but Fresno State, I just think looking at everything from top to bottom, they're a better squad, and the discrepancy in that, or the difference, excuse me, in that conference title odds, I think that's a little bit too much, really saying that Fresno State's a better squad. So I'm going to go Fresno State 34, Wyoming 23, take Fresno State minus 6.5 here on the road and the over of 47 hitting. All right, we get into our last two picks of the weekend, our dog of the day and our locks of the week. My dog of the day, I'm going to go with Missouri here, actually. They're plus 6.5 here at home, I believe that is, Joe?
Yes, they are at home against LSU this week.
Yeah, so Mizzou at home is my dog of the day for this upcoming Saturday. Plus 6.5, plus 220 on the money line against LSU. I think it's a huge home game for them in their program. First chance, and since I could not tell you when that Missouri football has a chance to go to 6-0, I feel like the coach was on the hot seat. Eli Drinkowitz coming into the year, he has a chance to really cement his job as the guy there going forward. LSU kind of dead in the water now. I mean, they still have a chance to win the SEC potentially if some chaos shakes out, if they beat Bama down the line. But this is an SEC team with LSU that already has 2 losses. Their national title hopes are pretty much all but gone, maybe a 5% chance left. So this is a team doesn't have much to play for, have really struggled on the defensive side of the ball despite having all this talent. I said last week against Ole Miss, I thought they were a fraudulent team, and I'm going to stick by that this week. So I'm going to go with Missouri at home here as my outright dog of the day.
Well, I think that's a great pick. Honestly, like you want to talk about a nightmare scenario for LSU, and you're all of a sudden losing the fan base. Yeah, now you get to go on the road to Missouri, who I know the first 2 years they made it to the SEC, they did win the East. But those were weird times. And, those Missouri teams were obviously very good. But it's been 10 years since Missouri has been relevant in football. Those fans have been chomping at the bit to be relevant because of the fact that of their early success when they first came into the conference. Their fans actually, do expect them to be pretty good. And they have not been that of late. And like you said, Coyle, Drinkowitz was definitely, if not on the hot seat, whatever hot seat, his seat was warm for sure. Yeah. So I think
that's warmers on.
Yeah, exactly. Very good pick. I think Brian Kelly is already in trouble. If they go and lose to Mizzou, Brian Kelly is going to be having a lot of questions to answer for the remainder of the season. But for my lock of the week, I'm going with Temple. I don't know. I've been ice cold with my locks. I was kind of looking around. I try to have locks of of 200 or better. I was between this and Akron. Akron was like plus 172. I didn't want to be, throwing out lines less than plus 200 because I think then it's like, well, yeah, I could probably pick a couple of dogs, that are that low and when it comes to college football. But Temple being at home, UTSA, that's who they're playing, by the way. At the link, there's going to probably be about 77 people there at the game, not including family members. I believe, Coyle, you told me that UTSA's quarterback's going to be out. We saw on Twitter, we were talking about it. Josh McCown's kid is starting for UTSA, and Kurt Warner's kid has been starting for Temple all season. So they're going to be playing each other. That's weird. If you're not going to take Temple on the money line, I would definitely sprinkle a spread just because I think UTSA, who's already been off to a rough start, without their starter, I don't trust them to cover 13.5 points.
All right, and now we wrap it up with our lock of the week. Like I said, I haven't hit a lock of the week since week 0, I believe. So if you want to fade me, maybe now's not the time because I think I'm due. This one, using all the logic possible, it just makes too much sense for it to not hit. Like this, if this doesn't hit, I might just have to cancel myself from the lock of the week and just give it up to you. We're going Ole Miss, the boys, Arkansas over 63. In the 3 games played, this game is being played at Ole Miss. In the 3 games played at Ole Miss this year, there's an average of 85 points per game scored. 7 of Arkansas's last 8 games have gone over the total, and the last 2 matchups between these 2 teams have gone over. Everything's screaming over to me. Seems too easy, too simple. Numbers down at 63. Both of these teams have shown the ability to give up a lot of points early in the season and score a lot of points in their own right. Over 63, Ole Miss, Arkansas, my lock of the week.
Coyle, I might have to ride that pick. I do really like over 63 in that game. My lock of the week, I'm going back. This team got me a lock of the week earlier in the season. I'm going UNC, minus 8.5. They are home against Syracuse Orange. Syracuse kind of had their shot last week, like Syracuse always does. They start off the season, they play, a couple of cupcakes. They play a Purdue team that, who knows what they really are. They're 4-0. I had them as my dog last week. They lost. Clemson beat them 31-14. Now Syracuse has to go on the road back-to-back weeks with UNC this week and then at Florida State next week. It's a little bit discouraging as a player, when it feels like Syracuse every year, they beat the teams they're supposed to. It seems like they've mastered this. Then they lose to the teams they're supposed to lose to. UNC coming off a bye. Drake May has another good opportunity, another 3:30 ESPN game for UNC. I believe that's the time they were playing Minnesota. I just don't think Syracuse, frankly, is as good as their record says they are. That's why I'm kind of taking UNC here to cover that spread. I could see UNC winning this game by 10 or 14 because it is, college football, and Syracuse is a weird team. But what I saw against Clemson didn't really give me a lot of confidence in them going forward. And, this is going to be the best quarterback they've played by far, just like how I was saying a couple weeks ago with Minnesota, the best QB they're going to have to play so far this season. I think Drake May is going to have another very good game. And like I said, coming off a bye is another big reason why I'm taking the Tar Heels here to cover.
All right, well, that will do it. Another show down and another week of games to look forward to. As always, we have you covered for all the big games here on Beef Up Front. Joe, before we head out, Red October here in Philadelphia, what is your series prediction versus the Marlins?
I'm going to go Phillies 2-1 just because I don't want to say sweep and jinx. I'm going to say 2-1 Phils, and then you guys versus the Braves is going to be a lot of fun.
All right, well, you heard it here first. Red October in Philly, college football. Eagles still undefeated. Great vibes here in Philly, not so much in New York. But that'll do it for this episode of the Beef Up Front podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will talk soon.